Hello. Okay, so oh, right on time. I hear a child in the background because we were all that BBC guy in Korea, Korean expert now. Um, anyway, so let me let me actually move this item to the end because let me first start with so this is a question mainly from 18A, so math 18A instructors. I hear that this is a question of great interest to y'all. So many of you, I think, quite reasonably, and I think this is sort of my intention of putting out a standard final all the time. Is many of you are teaching to the test, which I don't object to. That's sort of the design of the course in many ways. So the first thing, principle that I want to try to uphold as much as possible, though, did I mention that? Oh yeah, I should put this in the beginning. So again, of course, all plans are written in sand. Is Alana there? What's the quote? All right.
I don't think she's here. It's something from Star Wars.
Yeah, it's something from Star Wars. Okay, so yeah, all plans are written in sand, and so who knows how much of this will be wiped out in a week or two. But my intent at the moment is that as much as possible, the final exam will resemble a standard final, the standard final that I give every year. I mean, and to be honest, it's actually a great effort for me to write any different kind of an exam anyway. So absent some heroic effort, that's what's going to happen anyway. So is that somewhat reassuring? Hit the yes button, no button.
Mr. Shu,
questions?
From what I remember from looking at your past exams,
yes,
I would feel comfortable giving that exam as a take-home. I don't think
you would or would not.
I would. I don't. There were no. I don't remember any gimmies on that test where they could just Google something or because you're going to usually allow them a cheat sheet. I think that would be the kind of test that you make would be perfectly fine for take-home. The only thing you got to watch is just for obvious collaboration, obvious copying.
Yes,
and
collaboration might be kind of out of control this year.
Right, and that's going to happen probably. Yeah. But if it's blatant, you can tell in the final result. It's pretty easy to tell. So I don't the kind of test you make, I don't see any reason to go through all this complicated browser stuff. I think
that as you can, if you look down here, like what are our standard, and this is sort of for everybody, but especially for 18A instructors, you can sort of see that one of the options we are weighing in terms of proctoring is to replace whatever kind of proctoring with none. So that may happen, and not so much because, well, yeah, partly not so much because of the bare minimum principle, the principle of the least action, but actually because there may be problems with getting people cameras. Oh right, so let me so camera surveys, that's something else we need to talk about. Okay, so thanks for that comment, Jeff. That's right. What are some possible full solutions for? So here are some. So as you can see up here, we just had an hour-and-a-half meeting. It was Drs. Campisi, Fryer, Kaiko, and Jahan Bakam, all the coordinators of our sort of coordinated classes, and we had a discussion about how we are going to try to administer exams in our various classes. And here's sort of the two basic packages that we have. So the first basic full sort of fundamental idea that we have for a full solution of how to administer exams is that you write an exam on WebAssign. So so those of you who are teaching your own lecture classes, this is a good place to do this kind of survey. How many of you know how to write your own problems on WebAssign, which is apparently possible? Yes or no? It'd be great if we get some.
I do. I was playing around with it.
How hard is it? This is Amanda talking.
For me, very. It's a coding thing, and it uses like a bit of HTML, a bit of Perl, which is currently a dead language. They have something called LaTeX or WaTeX instead of LaTeX. It's annoying, but quite honestly, I was able to figure it out. And if I could figure it out with no coding experience, I'm pretty sure some others could too.
Okay, so it sounds annoying, but not much worse than writing some combination of writing your own LaTeX and writing your own HTML.
Well, if it's anything like the MAA, there's some Perl involved too, and that'll drive people crazy.
Yes. Okay. So let me put in writing your own problems is possible, but non-trivial in the sense of, oh my. Okay. So all right. But the fact remains. I mean, or you could even. I'm gonna let me just ask everybody, since I have never used WebAssign in any significant way. Are there canned, for those of you teaching 18A especially, are there canned exams somewhere on WebAssign? Is anybody aware of those? Yes, no, maybe so.
I believe
Not
there
that
are.
I know of.
I believe there are problem banks that you can pull from. I think I looked at it at one time, but I can't be sure.
Yeah, there are problem banks you pull from. They're the same ones you use to build the homework assignment. So you can pull pre-made problems, but they're more designed for homework.
I see. Well, you could just sort of pull a bunch of homework problems, like maybe not that many, because homework problems tend to be kind of longer, and that would be your exam. Amanda, does that sound possible? And then we can discuss.
I don't see why not.
Yeah, so that would that would kind of fall under the bare minimum principle. That would actually work pretty well there. So maybe use canned homework problems to make an exam, and that would have sort of enough of like randomization. And you could have them sort of do basically a homework under time conditions if you want, and then I mean, like so I don't know. So WebAssign, is there like a publish button? Can somebody tell me?
When you make assignments, you schedule them to be available at certain times and close at certain times, if that's what you
right. Mean. So you could schedule to appear to be visible at 10:30, and close it at 11:45, and that would be your timed exam. Does that sound possible to people?
Possible, but what's going to be the overall rule for, Professor, my internet service went out in the middle of the exam, or all these types of things? How are we going to address those?
Yeah, well, on a case-by-case basis. Hi, Amanda.
One reason why I wanted to address this now is so that we can talk to students more seriously about how to get resources. There are a lot of resources for getting working computers and getting Wi-Fi and stuff like that. So if they're having problems now, they should be addressing it with us and getting those resources. That way, when we're at the test, it's not as big of an issue, hopefully.
Yes, and so so one thing we have to do is we have to figure out if it is plausible that we can actually get enough cameras to supply the people who don't have cameras, and because and that's one reason why we have to sort of reserve the option of none for proctoring, because if we can't get everybody a camera, then the answer is none. There will be no proctoring.
Yeah, I have students that have returned to their countries of origin. So yeah, and a lot of those countries are in higher lockdown than we are.
Jared,
so they're pretty much just gonna have their phone.
Okay, so it's kind of a follow-up with Jeffrey about the internet connection. So Dr. Lee sent out to her 267 class, which would include me, something about other internet service providers providing unlimited data or something. I can probably pull that up. Give me one sec.
Yeah, basically every internet provider on Earth who has like a big net is letting people use their hotspots for free.
So in that case, would internet connection not necessarily be an issue?
Maybe you don't live near there. Maybe you don't want to go outside.
People in rural areas will be less likely to have a hotspot next to them than people in metropolitan areas.
Yeah, so if you live in the middle of nowhere, that's a problem.
I think the lowest common denominator is the phone. So I think you just have to assume worst case is they have a phone.
I think a bit like how we mentioned earlier about using WebAssign to create exams. I don't think we have to go in that approach. Rather, we can also create exams on Canvas and incorporate it with the lockdown browser. That would be another good approach.
Okay. For whatever reason, this is not one anybody had talked to in this meeting of the coordinators and Dr. Kaiko. That's not an approach that any of us had actually considered for whatever reason.
Yeah, I just had a similar experience last semester when doing it. So like my professor would put the quiz on Canvas and then we had to take it on the lockdown browser and then they would give us our grade automatically and enter it into the grading system automatically. So we don't have to do any of the work besides creating it.
Okay.
Can I say a comment about Canvas quizzes?
Sure.
I had been using them earlier in the semester as a way to do warm-up quizzes and take attendance in a way. They are really, really bad for math exams.
And why is that?
Because you can't have them, like for example on WebAssign, you can have them type in symbols and answer that way, but you can't do that on Canvas. Like even in interval, they can't type infinity. It'd be difficult to make an exam where
so
everybody
anything
types
beyond multiple choice, essentially, you can't really do through a Canvas exam?
basically.
Actually, Amanda, so I'm sorry to overspeak, but I did try playing around with it where there is a equation editor, though I am going to take that, give you a caveat because I tried it with one of my students who was trying to make up a quiz and for whatever reason, the equations didn't show up for her. So yeah, Canvas quizzes kind of tricky to work out.
Yeah,
as far as I know, the equation editor lets you type equations like in the question, but students themselves can't answer like that.
Oh, okay.
All right, so that explains why no one in our previous meeting suggested Canvas. Okay. And let me actually emphasize the sort of other half of my bare minimum things, bare minimum statement, because the sort of lesser, maybe less catchy other half. So the other half is that one of the reasons to put in the sort of do the bare minimum necessary to make things okay is that statement really applies to technical stuff. Whereas if you happen to have energy to put in effort, that energy I feel is best spent. If you have energy between after like making sure your parents and children and siblings and pets don't die, if you have energy to give to your students, I think that energy is perhaps well spent making their lives less difficult. And so we want to try to pick a system that is not that hard for students to do, and but also sort of won't stress them out too much, which is why some things like so I believe the feedback. One of the reasons that I thought, oh gosh, we better have this meeting as soon as possible is that I somehow rumors got around that we were thinking about adding essays, and as you can see, that is actually one possibility of supplementing the WebAssign, the sort of WebAssign sort of short answer multiple choice, which is super cheatable, is to supplement that with a take-home essay which is super not cheatable. I mean, unless you just completely copy somebody else's essay, which that's not too hard to get caught either. So what I heard, because the reason I sort of said, well, we better think about this now, is that am I correct in thinking that more than one of you, maybe a lot? So how many of you have had students come to you in abject fear that this would occur? Because I seem to get a feedback from a number of sources. So there are a bunch of people saying no. Does that mean no? Your students do not fear this, or no? Please don't. Please, no, God, please no, don't do that.
My students haven't asked me anything about essay questions.
Okay. But you were the sort of one of the people I was thinking about. So I thought your students had some fear that things would be different somehow.
Oh no, I have the fear. I haven't told them about this yet, but in the past when I've tried to do more conceptual questions with 18A, it goes extremely poorly.
I see. So this is just your very reasonable instructor fear that we'll have an essay and then they'll all be blank.
Correct.
Which I think is, given the expectations, given 18A, given the expectations with which they enter the course and the expectations that we have built to this point in the semester, yes, that's probably true. And it might not be reasonable to sort of do essays at this point, at least for 18A. Fernando, are you there? Can I pick on you? Didn't you say some of the folks you talked about this had some sort of worry on those lines, or is it just you had this worry?
The people in my support course, they had to worry about, in general, what's going to happen with exams. They don't know anything about trying to do an essay.
I see. And is it reasonable to say that if we suddenly included like some kind of essay in it, something conceptual, they'd just all go home? Or they would be home already, sorry. But they would just like, I'm not going to bother taking this exam?
Potentially, I don't know.
Well, Fernando?
I guess.
Okay.
I guess it's just a different demographic between 18A and 19.
Yeah, that's true.
As well.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and I guess 19. You guys are having another. Hi, Bem. Another meeting at some other time.
Yeah, I believe sometime this week on Thursday or Friday we're gonna have a meeting for what's gonna happen with our own exams.
Fernando, I hope you don't have a fever.
I do.
Uh-oh.
Don't worry, I'll make it.
How's your sense of smell?
It's okay.
Oh, good. Because that is actually one of the symptoms of the corona, I believe, is that if you're otherwise asymptomatic, but you suddenly lose your sense of smell or taste, that's not such a great sign, actually. So stay safe.
I'll make it.
Don't breathe on anybody.
I'm trying.
Dr. Shi, we have a question in the chat.
Sure. Oh yeah, from Jeff. What is meant by essay? Word problem? Yeah. So Jeff asked, "What is meant by essay? Do I mean a word problem?" No, I mean we have word problems already on our standard exam. Essay meaning like explain anything with the word explain in it. Explain why it is that you have to that the graph. Look at the graph of this. The following is a graph of a polynomial. Explain how you know that x minus 2 divides this polynomial.
Okay, I see. The kind of answers you either get nothing or you get 5 pages on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that would be one way to sort of sort of make a distinction between the C that everybody gets from cheating on WebAssign and the A that maybe some folks get. Yeah.
I actually had a question about those essays.
Hi, who's this?
It's Jared.
Jared, okay.
So when you say essay question, can they just answer it with a single sentence and count? So long as that one sentence answers the question? It depends
on the essay. Don't call it an essay. So if you do this, so let me say, if you include a conceptual question, say exactly how many sentences you expect. So how many sentences long you expect the answer to be?
So they don't not necessarily be one sentence. They can answer it in 2 if they need an extra one. They're not locked into If I expect
Well,
two
you could
sentences,
say-
give me exactly two
So
sentences.
what I generally do, okay, so so the thing I actually mentioned was an actual question I put on an 18A exam, and then we got there and got to the grading, and we just all laughed because it was, you know, it was very easy to grade because they're all blank. You know, so the question goes something like, here's the graph of a polynomial function, and it crosses the x-axis at x equals 2. How do you know that? How do you explain how you know that x minus 2 divides f of x in one sentence? Does that? I mean, that's not quite right, because I'm doing this from memory and I'm just making it up making it up as we speak. But does that sort of make sense as to like what do I mean by you should say exactly how many sentences you expect it to be?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm not sure. You know, I'm not sure. You could try it, but I'm not sure I would. Yeah, I wouldn't do that. Or you know, yeah, possibly assessment with a possible take-home essay. And having said that, you know, this is something that some folks in some courses might try. I don't think I would do it. Does that make sense? But you know, if you guys want to try it, you could and see what happens. But anyway, so yeah, so I think, you know, sort of the addenda aside, one basic approach is to make essentially a WebAssign exam, and then you then possibly supplement that with which is timed assignment, which would be timed, and then add the sort of possibly Proctor with the Zoom or the lockdown browser, and then that's one basic approach. Another basic approach is and this is actually what I'm going to do in my upper division undergraduate class. I'm just going to email them. I'm going to hit the button on an email at like 10:30 a.m. Yeah, so Luis is saying it's essentially a proof. Yes, essentially a proof. That's why they're all blank. That's probably also why it's not a great idea to do those sort of essays. Yes, essentially a proof. Yeah, I mean, for God's sake, if you don't use the word proof. But you know, you could do something like that. I mean, and there are excellent pre-calculus and calculus books that have questions like that. You know, why? How do you know that the function keeps increasing? You know, if this is the picture of the two graphs for x equals 10, what do you know? What do you think will happen as x goes to 1,000 or 1,000,000 or 1,000,000,000 or whatever? You know, I mean, there's a strong case to be made for that's what we should be teaching people. But the fact is, that's not what we've been teaching people for half a semester, and you know, it's certainly not the expectation with which people enter the course. So it's certainly too late to do that right now. Yeah. So I'm just mentioning it. This is something I'm only mentioning that maybe I should I just erase this essay thing? I think the more we talk about it, the less. Does anybody actually want to try having some kind of essay slash proof in their own class, or should I just erase that? Just type in the chat or just say out loud, I want to try it, or erase. Yeah, no is too vague. Sorry.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah, okay, so can everybody type in the chat what your opinion is of this idea of essentially essentially a kind of sort of proof in 18A? You know, I've convinced myself this is a bad idea. Yes. All right. So that's not a realistic idea. So that's gone. All right. So one possibility is you can essentially use WebAssign to make an exam. Another possibility is that and here's essentially what I'm going to do. I'm just going to use more or less, maybe a slightly shorter version of the same sort of exam that I always give. This is going to be in Math 127. It's applied abstract algebra, applied and industrial algebra. And so I'm going to send it at 10:30. I'm going to send everybody the exam, the same exam. Email everyone in the class the same exam. they're going to take, and they have an hour, they have an hour and 10 minutes to 15 minutes to work on it. And at the end of that, they're going to take a photo or scan it, and they're going to write it on their own piece of paper. That's important. They're going to write the exam on their own piece of paper and take a photo of their work, and then submit it on Canvas. Submit on Canvas is probably what I'll have people do, and then maybe integrate this with Gradescope, which I'll explain what that is. I assume most people haven't heard of that, but and then so submit that on Canvas and maybe integrate this with Gradescope, and then so does that make sense? Is it sort of approach number 2? You basically use the same exam you always use, and you maybe watch them do their thing, and they sort of write it on their own piece of paper and take a picture and submit it on Canvas. So does that make sense? Does that make sense as an approach? Yes, no, somebody have their hand up? Oh, hi, Amanda, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
I just had a comment about that. I don't know if anybody else has had more success, but I try to get my students to turn in the homework that was due just before school closed by scanning or taking a picture and submitting to Canvas. And it went very, very poorly. A bunch of them turned in really terrible pictures, like things were crooked or blurry or too dark. I had one guy put all 3 pages of his homework out on his bed and send me a single picture of that. So, yeah, other people might have more luck, but my students in particular do not seem to be very tech savvy, and that is not ideal for my class.
I agree. Okay, so I think whatever method you use. So general tips. So general tips. One thing is that whatever method you use for administering exams, rehearse. So and I think whatever. So I think basically we've come down to 2. Actually, I'm going to erase the Canvas exam because a lot of people just said that wasn't so good. So whether you sort of have people do a timed web assignment, or whether you kind of email them you email them a sort of regular exam and have them take photos of what they did. You should definitely rehearse the idea, and then you can sort of tell them, give them tips like, oh, this was, you have all your things are upside down or they're sideways. You just have to rehearse. And I just gave myself a thumbs up. Why did I give myself a thumbs up? So you have to rehearse what's going on here.
I'm just looking through my submissions from my last homework, and it looks like they did okay.
I think after they do it 2 or so one reason that I'm going to have people submit on Canvas in my 127 is that they're already submitting their homework on Canvas. And so this is something that we have already rehearsed. Maybe not under a timed situation, but they've already rehearsed it, so it's not so bad.
I did get a couple that are sideways, which is a pain, but oh well.
Yeah, but actually, I highly recommend, if you grade something on Canvas, I highly recommend that you do like Speed Grader, because Speed Grader allows you to rotate the pictures.
That's what I'm doing. Oh, I can rotate it. Oh,
yeah, there's a rotate button.
Yeah, I see the rotate button.
There is a rotate button in Speed Grader, so that problem has a solution.
And a zoom. Okay, yeah, it looks like my students did pretty well on the Canvas turned in.
This is probably more for Amanda, and I doubt you're going to ask your students to submit any more paper homeworks onto Canvas, but I've asked my students to download Adobe Scan or whatever PDF scanner you have, because it has a functionality of being able to crop photos, so you can have the corners put out perfectly, and Granted, I only had 16 out of my 29 students actually submit something, so I don't know if they're having trouble with the app or just because of the whole virus thing and them not doing the assignment. But all the pictures seem to turn out kind of nice.
Okay.
So I did tell them all about those apps and even showed them how to use one through Zoom. I did a screen share and showed them how to do it. And I still had 15 of them send me pictures because they couldn't figure out how to put it into a PDF. So it might just be my class.
No, I think your experience is typical. It just takes a couple. They just have to rehearse. That's all.
Yeah, most of these that I'm looking at were obviously taken by the phone, and they all look pretty good.
Yeah, but so one other tip, and maybe this is because my eyesight is terrible. Ask people if people submit photos, and the most common problem I see is that people write really, especially sort of introverted people. I hate to be stereotypical, but introverted people can sometimes write very small and very faintly. And then when you take a photo of it or you scan it, it's just like completely impossible to read. So yeah, ask people to write in pen or write dark. Hi, Amanda.
I'm just more curious for the final, what are you leaning more towards? Having them do some sort of online exam or do it on paper and submit?
I would like to do. I personally would like. What did I say? I think I personally would like to do the standard exam, and have them take photos, if that's possible. Because in many ways, that's a sort of minimal effort, more of a minimal effort than the WebAssign thing. It's very difficult to write a good multiple choice short answer exam. And there, yeah, I would want to write my own problems and blah 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 blah. So that it'd be a giant pain. So I'm leaning towards yes. Oh yeah, the final exam will resemble the standard final as much as I can help it. Does that answer your question? I think it was sort of your question that generated this meeting in the first place.
Even though I'm probably not going to have them submit anything else on paper, I do need them to practice so they can do this common final. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Well, let's try, okay? Because that would be much better. Yes, I would like to try that. So yes, please have your students rehearse submitting things on Canvas. And and they should be able to do it because there are lots of people who are submitting things on Canvas right now. So yeah, when did you try your experiment? Was it right when the shutdown happened, or was it this week?
It was towards the beginning, but I gave them extra time. Like they had an entire week to figure out how to turn it in on Canvas, and a lot of them couldn't do it. So I'll just make another assignment where I help them figure that out.
Did you call it credit or extra credit?
It was for credit.
Call it extra credit. The
They
extra
might
makes
still
no
ignore it.
effort. It makes no difference, right? But somehow people will make more effort for extra. Actually, it would somewhat correlate with the people who are less able to use the system to navigate with systems. But they will put in more effort into extra credit than they will for credit, even though credit counts for more.
What's up with that? I don't understand that. You put the word extra in there, and all of a sudden they're all game for it. They'll do it.
It's just human nature. I mean, it's the same way. It's the same way that people react differently, depending on whether you deduct something from your, where you pay something from your paycheck, or whether you give somebody a pay cut and then give them a little bonus of something. Even though financially it's the same effect, I think generally the second one is people object to more.
There's no obvious penalty for doing the extra credit incorrectly, but there is for doing
Yes, that's good. Right. There's no harm to it. That's exactly right. Thank you, Gabriella. Okay, so all right, let's do a survey question. I want to do a survey question recorded on the chat. So this is harmless. So those of you who are how many people here are teaching their own sections of some sort? Okay, a bunch of people. Could everybody type on the chat whether they want to try the WebAssign approach, whether they want to do the standard exam and photo approach, or something else? So anyone teaching their own lecture class? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's pretty evenly split. So it's like 5 to 3. 5 to 3. 5 people voted for standard exam and photo, and 3 people voted for WebAssign. So I'll put out a more general survey about this by email or something. Okay. Yeah. So survey. So student cameras. WebAssign versus standard exam plus photos. So does anyone want to say why they make the choice they made? See, why you prefer WebAssign? Does anyone want to say why they prefer to do this by try doing this by WebAssign?
Actually, I was pretty split on both, and I kind of want to, because I technically still give out quizzes for my class. So I want to test run them both using it as a quiz, like with a single question, see which one they're more responsive to.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, one thing. I mean, this is definitely a thing where the plans are written in sand, and if everybody, if maybe I think there's plenty of room for people to try both approaches, and if we find that we'll talk about this after we've all tried this, and we find out that one way works a lot better than the other, we'll probably lean towards that one way. Amanda, you have your hand up.
I'm going to do WebAssign primarily because it grades for me. Based on the assignment I got through Canvas, I already don't want to grade that, and that was just a homework assignment, so I definitely won't want to do an exam.
Yeah, I see. Okay. Well, yeah, grading. So we'll try both approaches and see which works better, and talk about which works better. And again, by the bare minimum principle, we'll definitely, one of the factors into that incorporated into working better is that so it doesn't kill all of us. Yeah, Fernanda, maybe there's a possibility of some sort of hybrid. Yes, though that might that might just sort of have the negatives of both sides. All right, so let me talk about something else here. So there's a thing called GradeScope that we actually sort of previously were planning to use. And what this does is sort of, so here's the URL, gradescope.com, and what this does is that this provides a way to distribute grading over the internet. And so here's a short, this is sort of the online version. This is the online version of the group grading room. So this is definitely something we were considering beforehand, even before the disaster. So I think maybe even a majority of you have experienced this thing where we all sit in a room and eat pizza, or not eat, and then grade 10 million exams together. Do you know what I'm talking about? So more or less, without going into too much detail, because Gradescope does a pretty good job of advertising itself, as you might imagine. So let me find it. If I can see if I can find the video for this. Gradescope. What is Gradescope? Here we go. Yada yada.
Grady.
Share. Copy. There we go. So this is something that we were thinking about incorporate using anyway, and now since now that the world is on fire, there are actually a lot of advantages to it. So almost also somewhat independently of this business, we will be sort of trying out Gradescope this semester. They gave us a free sample, and so the basic idea is that this allows us to do the group grading room online, except but you can just sort of do it at your own pace. You can do it independently, and so it seems pretty good. I mean, you have to make a minor modification to the exams. They have to put like one each problem on a separate page, but other than that, it's pretty good. It looks pretty good. I mean, maybe I'll have a different opinion once I actually learn how to use it, but that is. So does that make sense what Gradescope is? Yes, no, say yes yes or no on the chat or in this little box here. Yeah, we have some thumbs ups, we have some yeses. Okay. Yeah, yes. You know, now that I've actually used this little participant box, the chat window is still better. So I'll probably just go back to the chat window in the next edition of this. All right. So if we have, I mean, so I guess certainly one advantage of the WebAssign exam is that it's automatically graded. Yay, we like that. But I think it takes an awful lot of effort to set up. Boo, we don't like that. And it's even easier to cheat. Boo, we don't like that either. So yeah, we'll see. Like I said, we'll see. We will try both approaches and talk about which works better. Okay, so a few other things. The second midterm, I want to talk about the timing and the weighting. So for the timing, so what I would actually like you guys to do is the timing will not be coordinated. Will not be coordinated. For those of you teaching for those of you teaching 19 and 30, and for those of you teaching 19 is a completely different story. But for the second midterm in 18A, well, not what I want to do is I want to not strictly coordinate this. And the reason is, if you want to try something like there are sort of fancier, there are fancier proctoring services like ProctorU. If you want to, but in order to distribute resources, what we'll do is we'll sort of I'll just let you guys pick a sort of time between somewhere in the second or third week of April. Say second or third week of April. It's up to you. It's pick a sort of good time, a good time in to have your second and only other midterm in 18A. But my hope is actually you sort of don't go all the same time, because that will allow you to maybe try out some people-intensive solutions like ProctorU. So does that make sense on the timing of when you should have your second and last and only other midterm in 18A? So does that make sense? Yes, I got 2 yeses. Anybody want to say yes? 3 yeses. Anyone say yes on the chat box? 4. Okay, no one objected, so we'll move on. And the weighting of it. So here's actually what I will do probably. I'm actually kind of making this up as I go along, but it'll be something like 15% exam 1, 25% exam 2, 35% final. I think something like that would be reasonable. It actually does not violate. It doesn't violate our initial guideline of no more than 35% in the final. I think given that there won't be given that exam 2 is going to sort of replace something like 1.5 exams, I think that would be reasonable. Does that seem reasonable to y'all, or are you thinking something different? If you have something different, I'm all ears. If somebody wants to suggest a different kind of percentage, but this is not mandated. See, that's 75, which leaves 25%. That would leave 25% for quizzes, homework, participation, which is fine. So does that weighting of the midterms seem reasonable? Or does is anybody else thinking about a different set of percentages?
I think like more the exams should be like, it should be consistent, like 15% for exam 1 and 15% for exam 2. I think that would like leave some sort of consistency.
So I think the explanation would be that exam 2 is sort of taking the place of 1.5, more or less of 1.5 midterms, because there were supposed to be 2 so exam 2 is replacing exams 2 and 3 as a whole. So I think as long as we explain that should be okay. Teresa, does that make more sense now?
Yes, it does.
So the contents for exam 2 for this new exam 2 should cover everything that old exam 2 and old exam 3 should have covered?
Maybe like all of old exam 2 and like half of exam 3. Does that make sense?
So chapters 2, 3, and like half of 4?
I mean, there should be some reasonable cutoff. Maybe even just chapters 2 and 3. I mean, chapters. If I remember correctly, in 18A, chapter 3, exam 3 midterm exam 3 is originally scheduled to have a pretty non-trivial chunk of chapter 3, right?
I think it was just 3.7, or just like the last section of chapter 3.
Oh, well, it's actually meant to sort of. I think it's only exam 2 is only sort of meant to take up through like 3 point, not to where you are, but so maybe a few sections back. So yeah, anyway, yeah, just chapters 2 and 3 would be fine.
So we don't have to test them on logs or exponentials, because that's what exam 3 would have tested them on.
Correct. I think that would be a reasonable cutoff point. I mean, I should come up with some sort of reasonable. I should come up with a more firm policy, right? Yes. Okay, so I will make a point of doing that. I should come up with a more firm policy as to what exam 2 should cover, correct?
Yes, please.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So I will make up my mind and tell everybody. So before we come into the final 2 items, which are action items, does anybody have any questions about the policies we have discussed and I guess more or less set? Bam, did I get it all right?
Sorry, I was just half paying attention.
That's like half plus epsilon more than I would expect. Half minus epsilon more than I would expect. Did I get it all right, more or less?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right. Everybody's okay with that? Turn on your mics and say yes. It'd be nice to hear some more human voices.
Yes.
Yes, that's okay.
Excellent. Okay, so there's 2 things that we need people to do, and maybe Ben, maybe you could explain the second one, because maybe I don't quite understand it. The first one is that we need to take a survey of your students. So please survey your students. about two things. One is, do they have cameras? Oh, yeah. Sorry, this is a survey of you, actually, coming to you. And the first thing is this is so, and it's a pretty short survey. We just need to find out from them: do your students have access to a laptop with a camera, or at least a camera? Does that make sense?
Can you be explicit? So the camera, like, because they're going to say they have cameras on their phones. So is that going to be a sufficient yes to this, or does
Let's
it
see.
have to be in consideration?
You're right. Let me. So, do they have a laptop? Access to a laptop. Oops. Laptop with webcam. A phone with good internet and camera. Yeah.
Do they need a smartphone?
Sorry, Ben?
Do they need a smartphone?
Well,
I know it's hard to find a flip phone, but some people still have it.
okay, say smartphone with good internet and camera.
Wi-Fi? Well, they should have Wi-Fi access because there's a lot of free.
Well, you never know. Amanda.
Do they also need a working mic?
That one, I don't think so. Yeah, I was surprised people do not seem to have working mics, or at least that's what they claim. It's like, oh, my mic's off because my mic, it doesn't work. But I don't know. Maybe they disable their mics out of paranoia. That's possible. It's not unreasonable, actually. But Bam, is there any reason that people need mics? They need sound.
Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose you could tell by looking at them if they're talking to someone else, unless, of course, they're a ventriloquist. So
Yeah.
Is this survey for testing capability, or is this?
So the purpose of the survey is to see if it is plausible to use some sort of online proctoring, like proctor, or it seems more likely that we would ask you to proctor your own students via Zoom. We're about to get to that. So does that make sense? Jeff, did I answer your question?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah. The answer. Yeah.
Yes. Because so there is a possibility that some of this, we will have some of this equipment to loan out, and I hopefully clean very thoroughly when it comes back. But yeah. So that has been mentioned to us, like, oh, we can, the powers that be have said, oh, we can loan out some stuff so that students will be able to do this. But if they might not realize that we actually need to loan out 1,000 webcam laptops, in which case that might not actually suddenly that might suddenly turn to not possible. Yes, it might flip from P to NP. So we need to know how much stuff we would need to loan out in order to figure out how much we need to ask for. Does that make sense?
What is going to be the mechanism for loaning it out?
Ben, we hand out at the police station.
they could leave it at the police station. That's how. If you guys get a physical paycheck, last week I think Amanda mailed it out. But starting next week, we'll probably just leave it in the police station if you want to pick it up yourself, right?
Really? Why not just mail it? That seems much better.
Well, some people want to pick it up, but if they want to pick it up, we can leave it at the police station because they will be open.
Well, like, I think like it's better to do it through mail because it's like more convenient and stuff.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, but in any case, picking up a physical object at the doorway is within the bound. It actually is within the bounds of shelter in place. You know, that's sort of how you're supposed to go get your takeout pizza or whatever.
But wait, I was told that I could not require students to go somewhere to pick up their physical exam that they were all begging for. So
Right.
how can we
Oh,
require
I
them
don't know.
to come?
Did I tell you that?
I was told that.
I told him that.
I see.
You can't have office hours. So Jeff wanted to have office hours so that students can come pick it up.
No, I would have just sat outside the building and not had office hours and just had them drop by and pick it up.
So, but they still have to. The point is they have to come to pick it up.
So they'll have to get a laptop if we require this.
Yeah, this is a reasonable point.
I don't know how but this is just a question that they've asked, right? So
Yeah.
We haven't gone that far yet. This is something that they
Yeah.
said.
If we get to the point where we're loaning stuff out, then we will ask the question of how to distribute the equipment safely.
Okay. Also keep in mind there are students that have left. They're not in town.
Yes.
So this is not going to be feasible for them.
Well,
yes, this will be difficult to do with the students who are now in Switzerland, as somebody
well,
just
life is
mentioned.
just difficult. I don't know what else to tell you. Everything is just difficult right now.
Yes.
Yeah, because now they made it like strictly as if we had to stay home and we're not allowed to come out, and even under extenuating circumstances. So I think like as far as office hours go and all that stuff, I think we have to do it through Zoom and stuff like that. We have to like go like all technical and stuff.
Yeah, these are all good questions. I don't know. Maybe we'll mail them. I don't know.
Yeah, we should mail them. Like normally, like if we mail them, it's not only like convenient for us, but it would be convenient for the people who don't like who are far away also.
Anyway.
Sorry, Dr. Shu, sorry to interrupt, but will these minutes be online? Because I have a class starting right now.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
See ya. Okay. Right, and then so does that make sense? What we're going to ask you to ask your students?
Yeah.
Okay. And Teresa, you don't have to do this. This is mainly for the people who have their own lecture courses. But we just wanted everybody to sort of know what's going on.
Yeah.
So you don't do this. Anyway, so the other thing is that I will now actually also survey all the folks with their own lecture courses about whether you're going to try sort of doing a WebAssign exam or sort of basically handing out a standard exam and having people take photos of it. So think about what you're going to try, and I think I guess we kind of took a survey just now. It was like 3 for WebAssign and 5 for the standard exam, but I assume if I email everybody, then maybe I'll get a slightly different distribution. So does that make sense? What information I need from your survey? Everybody say yes in the chat. Yep. Anybody left here? Yeah. All right. So the last thing we have, last item we have, and I realize it's 4:30, so I gotta go soon myself. So so the last thing we have is that we need volunteer. So one of the approaches that we will try for proctoring is to do Zoom proctoring, sort of proctor via Zoom. And so we need 2 volunteers of 2 types. We need volunteers to help try to be proctors, to test drive the proctoring process, and we need volunteers to be pretend students. So Bem, you want to say what people should do if they want to volunteer?
Yeah, just email me and let me know, and we'll find a time next week to do like a test run. So we may want to make sure that it works. The Zoom proctoring works. There's another option that we haven't really talked much about. It's Respondas, and for that one, there are 2 types. You can just do a lockdown browser. If you're just giving them basically an unproctored exam, you could at least lock down the browser. And then they also can monitor, but I don't think there's a human monitoring. I think maybe they just take video and you can watch the video. I'm not sure. I have to
And there's supposed to be some sort of like AI that detects suspicious motion, I guess. I don't know.
Suppose, I don't know. It's another option, and it's not like ProctorU that actually requires a proctor for every 4 or 5 students. So it might be more feasible. But in any case, that monitoring thing still needs webcams, right? A lot of these things that have been
Yes.
suggested, the bottom line is they still need the equipment.
Yes.
Do the lockdown browsers work on phones?
You can actually look that up yourself if you want, but I don't know. I haven't really tried it. This is the big disadvantage is I'm not actually teaching this semester, so I've no guinea pigs to try it on. But if you go to SJSU, just Google SJSU space respond. It looks like respond and then us, one word, and you'll probably find it. And I think there are, there must be videos and stuff. I can send it to you if you want. I can send you the links that eCampus sent me.
I can search it. I'm just worried because I know right now that I have various students that are limited to phone only. And so if we start asking them to use a special browser, and if it doesn't work on the phone, then they're going to be left out.
Then you should email me and
So yes,
run with your phone next week. That's
here's the answer. It works for iPhone. Does not work on Chromebooks. Ugh. Or Android devices. Ugh. So not so good.
Not so good.
Yeah. So no. Yeah, not for our campus, because our campus is a very Android campus.
I have it on.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Anyway, I will send out another call for volunteers to try. And everybody's leaving anyway, so let's wrap this up. For volunteers to try Zoom proctoring during the break. Anyway, thank you. Sorry, this went over by 5 minutes. Thank you for stopping by and doing this, and tell all your friends who couldn't make it that this is on YouTube. And if you have any, I gotta go now. So if you have any remaining questions, please email me, and I will email out a link to this video and the stuff that we discussed momentarily. Okay, bye everybody.
Bye.
Bye.